Students, in this video today we'll discuss about the cardiac system. Here we'll learn about the structure of heart and its blood flow pathway. Human heart is a muscular organ and it is enclosed in a protective sac called pericardium. It is located inside the thoracic cavity, specifically in mediastinum, the central compartment of our chest. It is placed between the lungs, behind the sternum and also above the diaphragm. Usually heart has four chambers. It has two atria and two ventricles. Right atrium, left atrium, and the two ventricles are the right ventricle and left ventricle. There are valves inside the heart that is not shown in this diagram. It is shown in the next diagram. So these valves will ensure one way flow of blood. So we have four valves: tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve. So tricuspid valve is present between the right atria and right ventricle, whereas bicuspid valve is present between the left atrium and left ventricle. Also we have pulmonary valve. So this valve is present between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. Next one is the aortic valve. So this valve is present between the left ventricle and the aorta. So the primary function of the heart is that the right side of the heart handles the deoxygenated blood. So this blood, it is poor in oxygen and it sends to the lungs for oxygenation. So left side of the heart receives the oxygen rich blood from the lungs and pumps to the rest of the body. This heart wall, it has three layers. The first one is the epicardium, myocardium and then the endocardium. So here this is the right atrium, this is the right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. We have coronary arteries and veins all over the heart muscle. So these coronary arteries and veins, they provide and nourish the heart wall with the requirement of nutrients and blood supply. So they remove all the metabolic waste from the heart muscle itself. So these are all the blood vessels that supply oxygen and nutrients to the heart muscle itself. So this coronary arteries are very critical because the heart muscle needs its own blood supply. Blockages in these arteries and veins can cause heart attacks, myocardial infarction or angina. So next is the aorta. It is the largest artery. So it is the major outflow conduit. Problems inside this aorta are also very serious. So there is an interventricular septum. So it is a muscle wall. So this muscle wall separates the left and right ventricles. So now we'll enter into the blood flow pathway. So this is the diagram of the blood flow pathway. So it is very simple and it is defined in just very 6 steps for the easy remembrance of the student. So just we'll have a small refresh of this heart diagram. So this is the right atrium, this is the right ventricle. So this right atrium and right ventricle are separated by the tricuspid valve. So here we have the left atrium and left ventricle. So this left atria and ventricle are separated by the mitral or the bicuspid valve. So apart from these two valves, we have the other two valves. One is the pulmonary valve. So this pulmonary valve is placed between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. So this is the pulmonary artery. And the next valve is the aortic valve. So this aortic valve, so from the name itself we can tell that this aortic valve is present between the aorta and also the left ventricle. So these are the four valves and these are the four chambers present inside the heart. So now we'll just name the parts. That this is the superior vena cava, this is the inferior vena cava, and this is the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. This is the tricuspid valve, this is the mitral or bicuspid valve, this is the pulmonary valve, this is the aortic valve, this is the pulmonary artery and this is the pulmonary veins. So from this the deoxygenated blood enters inside the lungs. Inside the lungs, so the transfer of gases takes place, gas exchange occurs where oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide leaves out. Now our deoxygenated blood gets converted into oxygenated blood, and from the lungs the oxygenated blood enters via this pulmonary veins. So these are all the pulmonary artery, and this is the left pulmonary vein. So this is the right pulmonary vein, and this is the artery, right pulmonary artery. So yes, now we'll enter into those 6 simple steps. So first what happens is that in the first step, deoxygenated blood from the upper part of our body enters into the superior vena cava, and from the lower part of the body gets into the inferior vena cava. So deoxygenated blood enters into the right atrium via the superior and inferior vena cava. The second step is that now the right atrium, after getting all this deoxygenated blood, starts contracting. So right atrium contracts, blood flows through the tricuspid valve and then enters into the ventricle. So now what happens? Now once the blood enters into the ventricle, the third step is that the ventricle contracts. So this ventricle, after contracting, sends the blood via the pulmonary valve to the lungs. We know that well inside the lungs gas exchange occurs. Here deoxygenated blood, oxygen enters into this deoxygenated blood and carbon dioxide comes out. So now this blood is converted into oxygenated blood. So this oxygenated blood in the fourth step returns to the left atrium via this pulmonary veins. So now we'll have a smart tricky note that pulmonary artery sends the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and pulmonary veins carry the oxygenated blood from the lungs and gives it to the left atrium. So now in the fifth step what happens? Left atrium, after receiving the oxygenated blood, now it starts getting contracts. So it contracts, blood flows via the mitral valve and then enters into the left ventricle. So now finally this left ventricle contracts. So blood gets pumped via the aortic valve and then enters into the aorta. So that is why the aorta is very red in color, because it carries most of the oxygenated blood, and moreover this aorta is the largest artery present inside our body. So from the aorta, so the blood is given to all parts of our body. So here we have to make a very small note that this heart contracts and relaxes in order to fill and push the blood forward. So this period of contraction we call it as systole, and the period of relaxation we call it as diastole. So that is why the heart chambers alternate between contraction and relaxation in order to push the blood forward and also fill the blood inside the heart chamber. So we have to make a very small note that, and we also must remind that the period of time taken by the heart to get relaxed is called as diastole, and the period of time or contraction phase is called as systole. So hope students, we just came to know about the blood flow taken place inside the heart in a very small 6 steps. So the first step is that the deoxygenated blood enters the right atrium via the superior and inferior vena cava. Now the right atrium contracts, blood flows through the tricuspid valve to the ventricle. Next, the ventricle contracts and sends the blood through the pulmonary valve to the lungs. So here transfer of gases takes place, and in return the oxygenated blood returns to the left atrium via the pulmonary veins, and now the left atrium contracts. It flows the blood via the mitral valve to the ventricle, and finally the left ventricle contracts and pumps the blood through the aortic valve into the aorta, and from the aorta the blood is taken to the all parts of the body. So this alternate contraction and relaxation takes place to push the blood and also to fill inside the chamber. So this contraction phase we call it as systole, and the relaxation phase we call it as diastole. So thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe and like, and also give your comments to enhance the learning process. Thank you.